Okay.
What is this new system here?
This is Morris, records everything. By the way, hi Raquel. Hi Jonathan. Hi Ronnie. Hi Sammy. Hi everybody. Okay. Good to see you. Welcome back to all of us. Right? Right. Okay. Yeah. So they're looking at if you folks are on, they're looking at the sheet. The interesting thing that we pointed out was that the Ani Hashem occurrences, if you go to the last sheet, the very last occurrence, you'll see that there are exactly 80 occurrences in 78 verses. And what's also interesting about it is that the 79 of the occurrences are in the first 4 books. You'll see that Bimidbar has the 79th occurrence, etc. And then it says, Ani Hashem, Shochem b'toch b'nei Israel. And then the 80th one does not occur in what we call Devarim proper. It occurs in chapter 29, which is where Devarim turns after the Berachot and Kialot in 28:68 is the last verse of the Kialot, the En Koneh, and then the very next verse, 28:69, it says, that's Devarim. That's where it makes its turn. These are the words of the covenant, besides the one he made he made at Horeb. So from there all the way till the end, from all the way right. So from there all the way until the end of Devarim, it all is in third person, and this is in chapter 29, verse 5. In order that you will know, Ki Ani Adonai Elohechem. So we said that it's certainly no accident that there are 80 occurrences of the expression Ani Hashem, and that you see all of this is a review. You go to the third book, and in the third book you see the occurrences in Vayikra, right? The occurrences all the occurrences in each of the books mean something. By the way, 80 and 78. 78 is 3 times 26, right? It's 80 occurrences in 78 verses, because there are 2 double ups. So when you say 78, well, it's 26, 26, and 26. And when you get to Vayikra, the numbers become amazing, because in chapter 19, which is Kedoshim to you, which is the focal point, the 10 commandments are repeated in chapter 19. But now it takes the prior view prior to the Torah of what holiness is, and it defines holiness as the 10 commandments, right? You have to be holy, and it starts. Then you have to Ishimo Vaviv Torah Moru. So the 4th and 5th commandments. There are 16 occurrences in chapter 19. I'm sorry?
Opening of Kedoshim.
Yeah, Kedoshim Tiyu, chapter 19. And chapter 19 has 16 occurrences, if you look at those sheets there. And those 16 are broken up into 8 and 8. Ani Hashem is 8 of them. Ani Hashem Elokechem is 8 of them. The total amount of occurrences in the third book is also amazing, because it's 52 in 52 verses. That one is perfect. And the 52, of course, is 26 and 26. So whether it's by the book, whether it's by all of them, you see that the term is being used across the Torah in a very specific way, clearly, whether it be the books, whether it be all. And the importance of this is that it's being the Ani Hashem words specifically are being tied in with the covenant. Well, what does the covenant mean? We'll talk in a minute. How well it defines what the covenant is. This is where you get one of those very, very sharp definitions of the Berit and 8 and how they interact.
What's the significance of only one in Devarim? That's pretty.
Well, there's not one in Devarim. That's the point.
Oh, you're talking about yeah.
There's not. There's 79. That's what we spoke about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, you're saying
79 of them. It's going out of its way to say 17 foot 79. It's not accidental. It just happens to land that way. In Devarim proper, the expression does not exist, right? It's unique to, even though we're online, it's unique to the 4 books and subsequent to chapter 29.
Third person version.
What?
You could say in the third person.
In the third person version, yeah. But that Devarim proper doesn't have that. It's all first person. Oh, that said, I even had that analyzed, but since I don't want to go through the whole class, we'll sort of have. I'm trying to move forward from the prior class because we have a lot of ground to cover that probably won't be covered in this class either. But it doesn't bother me, no. But there's a pattern. You'll see if you look very closely, you can find the pattern in all of it. That being said, you have like this. If you go back and you look at the expression Ani Hashem, you realize that the only other time that the term comes up in the Torah is Anochi Hashem, and Anochi and Ani are the same word. Anochi means I, and Ani means I. And the Anochi that comes up in the 10 Commandments, the 2 sets. Anochi Hashem, right? That's one. What's the other one? Let me hear Morris. Let's see if you know.
It's not the same.
No, what's the 4 of them? Let me hear. I said 2 in each 10 Commandments, which repeat. So there's 4. That's 4 of them, right?
Yeah. So what's the other one? Shabbat something? On there?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you just so you might as well see it. For those of you online, you're watching me pull it up for you. So there's Anochi Hashem and then in chapter so that's going to be repeated twice in Shemot chapter 20, right? And then Shemot chapter 20 verse 5, then Devarim's version of the 10 Commandments, and in chapter 5 verse 6, and chapter 5 verse 9, no, then you now there's going to be, besides that, there's another one, and that's in chapter 4 verse 11. So that's another occurrence. So how many do we have now? 5 and 80. So we have 85 occurrences, correct? What else am I missing? I'm missing, there should be, no, there should be another 3, I think, right? And I'm not finding it. I don't know why. Let me see. Okay. We'll come back to this. I think we're missing 2 others. I don't know why. No, in the Torah. That's the 5th one. So we have 80 and 5 is 85 occurrences. For some reason, I thought there were 87 occurrences, 2 more, but I'm not seeing them. In any event, in any event, the question would become, why in the Ten Commandments does it utilize the term Anochi Hashem? Why doesn't it say Ani Hashem, right? Is Anochi like something, for example, a formal way of saying it, right? I don't know.
I've heard described it as existential. It's more.
But it still means it's the word Ani with a chaf in it.
But it's a higher level.
Anochi. Maybe. I don't know. That's very formal. That would mean if it's formal. I. Anochi means I.
No, both ways.
It's like
Both.
essence.
Both.
Smart JPS is both I and I.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you're not gonna. It's not gonna change. I don't think it's gonna change. But in any event, okay. I'm trying not to take up too much time on this.
Like in the Ten Commandments, I, the Lord, am your God.
Yeah,
And then
it's
I-
on. So why is the term occurring only in the 4 books, and then again it occurs in the end, meaning why? What's being introduced with Ani Hashem? Now, besides the occurrences of the term in Bereshit, there are 2 occurrences. Now, in the Berit Ben Avitarim, when you have it, it's exactly like the 10 Commandments, right? Ani Hashem Asher Hoseitichem Eru Kasdim. And of course, in the Berit Ben Avitarim, as you all know, the expression of you're going to be slaves for 400 years. And right, and I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take you out. It's like almost. It's not like it's like saying what it says in the 10 Commandments in the Berit Ben Avitarim, and then in chapter 15, verse 7, and then in 28. And that's with the ladder, yeah, right, with Yaakov. So, and then you hit with our chapter 6 famous one. That's where we were. It's the parasha. It was we moved ahead to 2 of them, but that's the key area where Hashem is going to respond with the famous chiasm, which you're all familiar with more or less. That chiasm which says and it's A, B, B, it works perfectly, and the Rab has it in its book, and so on and so forth. The Rab also has, which we're not going to do now, he quotes what I write about over here, that this Ani Hashem has many things that happen here that beyond the chiasm itself, about things that how many occurrences of God's name are there, and there are 1,820 occurrences of God's name in the Torah, which is 70 times 26. The term is being used in a significant way, right? That number 1820 we've heard many times. We spoke about that also. The number 1820 is the difference between the 2 sets of what do you call it? The census that takes place, right? The second one is 1,820 less than that, and 2 of the tribes 8,000 less, and one of the flags is 130,800. These are of the earliest discoveries that I made to back up the idea that this is not some kind of a midrash that's going on, but rather a literary technique that has a very specific objective, right? All of this is going towards what we want to talk about. That's why this review is important enough that we have to cover as much of it as we can in order to go forward and see what this all means to a later development that I want to talk about eventually. We see if we get to it tonight or next week. Those occurrences that occur over there, it's a multiple of in verses from there to the end of the 4 books, and from there to the end of the 5 books, and throughout all of the Torah. All of it, you'll just have to take my word for it. There are many, and the Rab puts it in his book for that reason. Many things that happen at that juncture in chapter 6, I think 4 occurrences, right? Right? Ani Hashem, and then Ani Hashem v'hoseti mitat sabot Mitzrayim, and then Ani Hashem Elohechem Hosei and then Ani Hashem v'natat Lechem Haaretz. That's the 4th, and that's it, right? That's further. That's moving on to the next piece. Right. Those 4 are the ones that are 26 apart, 102 words. The center 2 words, and the third one is 26 words from the second one. It's amazing, absolutely amazing, really, really beautiful to see. That said, God's name up until chapter 6, where he states his name, the major conversation that takes place with Hashem, with Moshe, when he first meets him, is about his name. So when you say Ani Yud Kei Vav Kei, right, call it the culmination of that first meeting. They meet, and then he represents God, and then things get worse, and then God says Ani Hashem, and then you start the 10 plagues. But before that, in chapter 2 is going to be of Shemot, right? Chapter 3, rather, Moshe Hayaro Etzon Yitro Hotno, and he goes and he sees a sinir, and the sinir is burning past sinir and in a ukal, and the sinir does not get burned up. Now, we pointed out also, all of this is a review 3 weeks ago to remind you that, because we have the new guys, that's the most comical statement, right? The statement that at the Sinir, he sees the Sinir in ukal is very interesting, because it says he was Moshe. If you look in chapter 3, verse 1, Moshe he comes to the mountain of God, Horeba. Well, that's right, Har Horeb, right? The mountain, the famous mountain, right? From out of the Sinir. Now, what we said was, look, in all of Devarim, you don't have the expression Sinai. And in the 4 books, you have Sinai and not Horeb. When you do have Horeb, it's like 3 times. We don't have to talk about why it occurs those few times. And when you do have one in Devarim, it's outside of the where does it occur? Adonai mi Sinai ba. That's in the Birachot. That's all 3rd person. That's the very end of the Torah, right? What's interesting about that is that when it says Adonai mi Sinai ba, that's how take a look at chapter 32 in Devarim, right? Just real quick so you see it. And when he says it, right? Chapter 33, right? 33, right? Yeah. 32. Right. So 33, V'zoto beracha asher berach Moshe et Elohim, Ish Elohim et bnei Yisrael, l'fnei moto v'yomar Adonai mi Sinai ba. So there's the term Sinai, but of course that's coming similar to the way Ani Hashem occurs in chapter 29, which is outside of Devarim proper. Of course, over here, outside of course, you're at the end of the whole Torah, and it's all 3rd person, right? Right? So over there you have Hashem Sinai ba. Now, it's so interesting that the center of the beracha, the very center words, which is at the very center of the beracha of Yosef. Yosef is at the center of the beracha, and the center of the center, bullseye again. Take a look at what those words are. Go to the beracha of Yosef, which is in verse 13, and you'll see that he says Mirosh Harekedim Megid Olam in 15, Megid Eretz Umloah Urutzon, and the Ritzon of the Shochani Seneh, the one who dwells in the bush. Now, of course, when you say Har Sinai and you say Seneh, you can't say it's like it just happens to be that way. And here you are at the end of the Arim, and when you come to the Sinai reference that it opens up on, so the very beginning of Zod Berecha Sinai, and the very middle of it says, and the place where God, the Ritzon of the one who dwells in the Sinai, in the bush, right? Of course, God who dwells in the bush and in Sinai. So just like Ani Hashem had that pattern, the Sinai has its own. It exists in the 4 books for all intents and purposes. That's how it's used. Horeb is used in Devarim proper, but it opens up by saying he introduces you to Horeb in his first meeting for Moshe. But when it introduces you to his first meeting, he says Horeb, but where does he see him? In the Sinai. And when you come to the end of the whole Torah, where are you located? You're back in the Sinai, right? So Abi, sorry, I'm just looking at you, so I'll ask you. So that Sinai reference, that Horeb, it turns into that, right? He meets him and sees him in the Sinai. So how do you think that word Sinai informs on Sinai, if it does?
Mini Sinai. It's a mini Sinai? Like a
Well, let's see what he has to say.
Low bush.
Yeah,
Sinai, also the lowest mountain. Sinai is also
right,
the lowest mountain. So very like modesty or something, right?
right. That's what they say. That's what the Midrash says, right? But if you look closely at the words in Shemot, it says that when he sees him in this, he wants to go see this thing because he sees a supernatural thing happening, right? Madua lo yevara Sinai. Why isn't the Sinai burning up? Right? There's a fire, but the Sinai doesn't get consumed in the fire, right? So correctly so, I think AB just now said very low. That's nevuah. That's a prophetic vision, right? When he has this prophetic vision, it's supernatural. Whatever a prophetic vision is, but it's being described as it's emanating, right? Fire is always attached to prophecy, correct, Morris?
Yeah.
All over the place, right? All over the place. So when the super prophetic vision is, he in the beginning, why isn't it? He's experiencing something that doesn't make sense. He's experiencing a supernatural event. What do you mean it's not being burnt up, right? So if the Sinai and Sinai are connected in some way, and Sinai means that vision, right? Well, the vision's related to Moshe, who has them in this sense.
Doesn't recognize that it's a nevuah?
Well, he's in a nevuah, the way we're talking now.
No, he says, why isn't it burning up?
Well, it's whatever it is that's experiencing this prophetic experience, right? He's having it. So how do you describe a prophetic experience that you can't describe? And how do you describe that it's a supernatural event? So it could very well be you talk about a Sinai, and you talk about how it's on fire, and you talk you're experiencing the prophecy, and you call it that the Sinai is not burning, is not consuming. So we pointed out how it's no accident that the very opening of the Sinai, which is going to now be, you're going to always be referring to Sinai, is going to be at Horev, and Devarim, which is going to only use Horev when you're going to come to the end. And Hashem says, where does Hashem come from? He comes from Sinai. And so you go, before you read more in the Sot Berachai, well, he comes from Sinai. Does that mean that means that it reminds you of the original the Sinai, Moshe, etc.? And if you say it sounds like that, well, when you're going to keep reading in Sot Berachai and go to a center words, it's going to say Ursot Shekani Sinai. The Sinai is going to come up again suddenly from out of nowhere, right? It's not suddenly from out of nowhere. Of course, it's purposeful. It's calling, it's the center, it's the focal point of the whole Beracha. And we know focal points are no accident. And what's saying? It's calling the vision. It's calling God coming from Sinai. It's saying he's the son of the one who dwells in the Sinai. So again, you see this, a pattern, right? A purposeful pattern. And you see that they sort of are connected, because the Ani Hashem is going to, the next conversation is about, unlike Yisrael at Ot, let me talk Hasineh. He calls him from the midst of the Sineh, right? That's of course a prophetic vision. I mean, it's saying it. He calls them from out of this Sineh, right? And he tells them, don't come any closer. Take off your shoes. Rabbi Sassoon says, we said 3 weeks ago, just to remind you, when he says take off your shoes, what does it mean? The place you're standing on is holy. But what does it mean? Rabbi Sassoon says, take off your shoes mean you're no longer on the path that you were on. You're now on a new path in your life. There's a paradigm shift that's taking place. You are now on a new path. Take off your shoes. You are now headed in a direction that's unprecedented, new, different. You've never been there before, right? The place you're standing on is Kodesh. It's Admat Kodesh. You're enter in the prophetic vision. You're in Admat Kodesh, right? Right? Another level. Exactly. Anochi Elohei Abicha. I am. There's Anochi. Anochi Elohei Abicha. Oh, there's the one. Not Anochi Hashem. Anochi Elohei Abicha, right? I think the other one's going to be Anochi. It'll be another one like this, right? Because I told you 87, right? We're at 85. This is 86. Anochi Elohei Abicha, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Ve'ester Moshe Panav Ki Arei Habid Elohim. That's one. There's going to be one of those also. There's going to be another one. There's going to be 87 occurrences altogether.
So when Hashem comes down at Sinai at the time of Matan Torah,
Vitamin water. No, give me the vitamin water. I can't down the other stuff. Yeah.
Sinai Hashem.
It's in the refrigerator.
Elohim Be'esh.
I didn't.
God comes down in fire.
Yeah.
At Har Sinai when they do it in Hashem the Berot. So it's another connection to the Sinai and the fire.
Clearly, no. It's another connection.
That's the.
Yes, but fire is going to have a listing of all of the occurrences of fire and God appearing, and there's a lot of them. Another typical one is the one from the Mishkan, from with that Nadav and Avihu. First, the fire comes out and it consumes, and everything is okay. With them, it comes out in same words, only it consumes them, right? Right. So, thank you. That's good. That's very good. So,
Also, Moshe had this prophetic moment.
Yeah.
Right? He goes to go get the Jews and brings them to the Sinai. You gotta see what I say.
they're going to come to Sinai. He's going to bring them to Sinai. Very good. It's good. It's good. So he's going to bring them to Sinai. It's good. So now the conversation that will take place over here will be, he says, I see what's happening, God tells him. I came down to save them, and their cry is coming to me, and I want to send you to Paro. V'yomer Moshe Elohim, mi anochi? Who am I? Mi anochi? Ki elech el Paro, umi osi v'chi osi et bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim. V'yomer ki ehyeh imach, I'm going to be with you. And now the famous words over there are this. This is critical. This is the sign, right? Sammy, your father, I can't see you, I'll have texts up on the screen, but your father loved the class that I gave about the oughts in the summertime in Allenhurst. I showed that all, I don't know if you guys, any of you were in that class, I showed that all the oughts are not, there's nothing magical that happens, but rather that all the oughts are, oh, there he is.
I'm listening.
That's so
I'm
funny.
listening. He's right there.
Eli's there, like, I didn't see him. Get on. Right? Because you commented to me, Eli, that you remembered it very well. And that you were very favorably disposed to it. That's what I was going to say.
Amazing.
You liked it.
It
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah. So you don't see anything magical happening. Every time you see an ought, the ought is always meaning something such as I'm going to be with you. Ought, the reading chapter 3, verse 12. And this is for you, the ought, that I sent you. When you take the nation out of Mitzrayim, you will serve God on this mountain. How do you know it'll work, Menachem? Because it works. I like the way Menachem says that, that's why I asked him. How do you know it works? Because it worked. That's the only way you know. It's such a clear statement of this is the ought for you. What ought? When it happens, you'll look and say, oh, it happened. God said it would happen, and it happened. So you know how it happened? Because it happened. You don't know anything before. So
Doesn't answer his question. No. It doesn't answer Moshe's question.
about what?
How are they gonna know that I'm the guy? He said,
That's how you're going to know. It does answer his question. That's the ought. That's when you'll know.
no, but this is a question Moshe is asking for the people to know.
Right. That's how they'll know.
Let's go.
He's gonna tell them.
Right.
What do you mean? How do I know I'm coming with you? I'm gonna show you later?
No,
Right.
he can tell you.
That's how it always works. That's what this class is all about. I'm letting you.
Okay.
That's not this class, the series of classes, because you can't do it in one shot.
Is it similar to like when Abraham had Eve? And he has the question of how am I gonna know that this is gonna happen?
Right.
You're not really gonna know, but it's gonna happen.
Right. You mean in the Brit Betarim? Yeah. He says, how do I know I'm going to inherit it? Right.
It's gonna happen.
So he tells him because they're going to. How do I know? And then he tells him, do this.
Yeah.
Do this to the animals, which nobody has an answer for, which we answered in volume 1, but it took 100 pages. Right. No one's ever written about that with that ritual that he does. Right. So you'll know that. But if there's a war going on in Israel now, and Hashem is involved in this not and maybe and he is involved, how will you know that he is manipulating everything and moving all the pieces?
Right.
How do you feel about that?
That's
It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
You said
It's so hard.
You said that he said you can't send it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Better now, it sounds.
Right. AB correctly so says that you always talk about, he just said that I talk about, that when Moshe is on Har Sinai getting the second Luchot, he passes by, he's in the crevice, and he looks and he can't, he puts his hand, he can't see God. When God passes, he sees him. So he says, you can only see Ahurai, you can't see Parai, you can't see me, right? You can only see me retrospectively. You can only see me after I pass. When I'm on the scene, you can't see me. And then in the volume 1, we talked about, which is going to come up again in volume 2 in an important way, is Eliyahu's meeting also at Horeb. When Eliyahu comes in and it all looks like Moshe Rabbeinu traveled 40 days for all kinds of things happening that are similar. And Hashem tells him, what are you doing here? Malachi, poor Eliyahu, what are you doing? And he says, I did this. I'm the only guy left in the world. I got rid of everything. I did it, took good care of the Nevi Baal, and Izebel, that lowlife, is coming to kill me with 400 guys. And God tells him, you can't find me in the fire, you can't find me in the wind, the sound, right? You can only, I'm called him a madaka, an imperceptible sound, which is the same, if not the same exact, certainly similar to the answer, you can only see me retrospectively. Called him madaka means my actions are imperceptible, right? You don't see them. You only see them after the fact. So Eliyahu, the next day, he's still there. So God tells him, what are you doing here, Eliyahu? Malachi for Eliyahu, again, the same exact words, and Eliyahu answers him the same exact answer. Word for word. I came, I did it. What does that mean when he answered the same exact answer, AB? He was paying attention. He's paying plenty of attention. He doesn't like the answer. He's telling God, I don't buy it. Because God said, what are you doing here? So the first time, what are you doing here? He tells him. So he answers him the same exact words. So he says, go back to work. Go get Elisha. Hire Eli, make sure Elisha is your successor, and go make Hazael the Hitler. Go appoint him, and then take this, and so on and so forth. All things that are going to happen that he sets up that happens after his life. Right?
He's fired.
Well, a lot of people believe he's fired. A lot of scholars say he's fired. And I like to believe that he wasn't fired. He was told, you don't like the answer, tough, go back to work. Because he does spend a long time mentoring Elisha. And Elisha tells him, what's Elisha's request that he wants from him? I want
2 times prophecy.
I
2
want
times prophecy.
P9, right? So what do you say about P9, Mars? It's a very interesting observation.
Yeah.
Who?
He wants the responsibility.
I can't hear you. Speak a
He
little.
wants the responsibility. He's asking for the
He wants to be
responsibility.
the inheritor.
Yeah,
No, and where do you have P9?
Inheritor,
Well,
the oldest.
by Yaakov
Yeah,
with the before.
yeah.
He's gonna buy that from Esav, and we get into the whole thing of how there's a comparison between Esav and Eliyahu.
Because Esav's answer is, who needs this? I'm going to die anyway. So what legacy, what future? It represents future, right? It represents the future, this idea. So Yaakov is all future oriented. Esav is not future oriented, he's present oriented. So Mara says, when Eliyahu is there, Eliyahu wants results right now. And I think Mars's observation has a lot of merit to it, because remember that the Esav and Yaakov's story are about twins. Whenever you have a story about twins, it's like 2 aspects of the same personality. When you say twins, they came out together. They're inside. She says that the Torah describes the struggle as taking place prior to birth, right? Of course, there's tremendous metaphor in that the struggle is taking place. In other words, it's from the very inception of the human condition. Let's say, for example, that this idea of one is future oriented and one is present oriented. So Morris says when he tells Eliyahu, Elisha says, I want Pishnayim from you. Elisha says, he asking, Eliyahu says, big, tough question you're asking. But he says, you'll get it if you see me leave. Right? In other words, if you're with me till the very end, so you will get it. So, but Eliyahu never backed off of his position with God. God tells him, go back to work, and he's a faithful servant to Eliyahu, and he does go back to work. He does everything God said, every single thing he said.
There's a request that comes through in the end. He tells God in that comment, if this is the way, if this is the way it's gonna be, then I'd rather you take me off the scene. And he does get taken off the scene.
You heard? God takes him.
He tells him.
He's the only person in the whole Tanakh.
No, it's
So
exactly
You may
his
get
request.
the question satisfied on the next
Yeah,
round.
but it's the exact request that comes.
The
that comes
point
about.
being,
Yeah.
he gets taken, right? He gets taken up in a bat ish, right?
But also might be putting that.
Just over the back of your
see,
chair. What?
The fact that he gets taken up alive and not dead, that maybe he's fulfilling that desire that wish he had.
Maybe, and maybe.
Yeah.
But Mars's observations here are critical because Eliyahu, you're getting a three-dimensional view. Moshe's view that you have in Shemot, right? When he comes after the Egil and so on and so forth, and he tells him this Moshe has the berit with him, right? He says, forgive them because they're Am Kisher order. Not the word he's afraid to say. You remember this? He flips it. He says, the minute he says because they're Am Kisher order, God says, okay, deal. He takes it. Now he said the right words. Whereas Eliyahu is not satisfied with the answer and never gets satisfied with the answer, except for go back to work, which he does, and he's a faithful servant, and he goes all the way down to the end with mentoring. And Elisha copies. You'll see when you look at Elisha's life. Elisha does all the things that, right? He does some of the things that Eliyahu does. He learns CPR from Eliyahu, right? When he does it, but he also, his life tracks Moshe Rabbeinu. When you look at Elisha's life, it looks like, oh, that happened to Moshe. Oh, that happened to Moshe again and again and again. All of that comes to this idea of when you're going to see me, you're going to see me in retrospect. You're going to see my back. You can't see it, right? Because remember, all of this is coming from the most critical junk part of the Torah, according to the way the rabbis or anybody, right? Right? Or kibodecha, right? Show me your way. God, he wants to understand how things work, and Sadiq Virat Lord, Ashat Vitov Lord, and all of that. And the answer is, you're not getting an answer. That's the end. You're not going to get an answer. You're not going to see this work out while it's happening. Morris claims, by the way, I should mention, because in this war, Morris claims that it is happening. And if you look, you could see it, but it's imperceptible. Yeah, with this war, you should state your opinion.
No.
I think it's a good opinion. I really do. I wouldn't ask you to state it if it wasn't good.
That's. What do you want me to say?
Say what you told me. We
What?
had a conversation about it. I thought it was very valid.
Repeat it.
Mars says that this battle, that started this incident, you could have had, instead of 1,500 people, you could have had easily 15,000 people killed. If a couple of things went the other way, just a couple of things, 3,000 guys could kill 3,000 guys in 3 more hours, can kill 10, and they probably intended to kill. Yeah, kill 10, 15,000, take hostages, take 5,000 hostages, have the thing sealed off and so on and so forth. Mars says, you see, it didn't happen. Now you're looking at it, you say one thing, but if you look at it in retrospect, Mars says, And then he says you were sleeping with a snake, right? You sleep, you go to bed every night with a python in your bed with a little cage.
That they didn't take action.
Realize the life of the fact. Right.
Yes, there was.
There were two,
Complacent.
but they were also two, what do you call that? Secure in their capability of Iron Dome, and it became like yeah, they just disregarded it.
This is 1973, go read the 1973.
Right.
stuff.
If you go to bed every night in your bed, you go to bed and there's a python in a cage. A python, a deadly one. So 20 years later, the python bit its way through and you took it for granted that 20 years you with the python, but you're sleeping with a python. You forgot that you're sleeping with it.
Not God's hand.
What?
It's human.
No, exactly. But that it's being, you're getting the warning shots that the thing isn't happening as
Okay, so that's
yeah.
human error. They're not.
No, of
caused
course.
an error. It's not.
Of course, no. I never said that God forbid,
Yeah.
allowed it or promoted it. That would be the opposite.
It's your own shortcoming.
Yeah.
Yes.
You allowed it to
That's
happen.
my point. It's the shortcomings that allowed. They shouldn't have put them there in the first place. You put a guy in the country
Yeah.
surrounded. You put a guy on the back end of the
Yeah.
situation. It shouldn't have been there in the first
course.
place.
Right. You should never have accepted it. You should always have fought it. Same thing with the North. You never can. Now they're making a 1 kilometer perimeter. They flattened everything in Gaza, 1 kilometer. So they're going to turn that into a no man's land now, and they'll probably have jeeps, soldiers up and down the entire coast, constantly going. So it's very different than the other one, it was right there, right in back of you.
It's
Nothing right in back of you. Over here, you have the fence is like your backyard for your neighbor, like you and your neighbor. Right, don't you have connected to you, what's his name? Who lives in back of your house in Jersey? Morris Hiddery. Mamash. Right? I know from COVID, yeah. He walks right through, right? That's how they were living. With people who want to kill you. Yeah, Morris Hiddery, thank God. No, people who want to kill you. Right? So I think those are really valid points relating to this. The reason I want you to speak about it.
Imperceptible point.
That's the point. Morris says it's imperceptible. What is it going to be like when you look back on this? Morris says you may look back on this and say, what a miracle. What a miracle. It could have been 15,000, 20,000 people. It could have been who knows how many. Could have been. And because of X, God intervened and didn't let what you allowed to happen, right? Despite the fact that it could happen, God intervened, but you don't see any of that now. Maybe. He doesn't know for sure. He's just saying that's an example of when it's imperceptible. You don't see it.
They were digging graves in 67, and look what happened after the fact. They look back.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All of this being said, there's going to be a discussion that's going to take place between Moshe and Hashem in the very first conversation. And that conversation is, the first time he says it, right? He says in verse, Vayomer Moshe el Elohim in verse 13, yeah. Hine anochi ba el bnei Yisrael v'amarti lahem Elohei avotechem shalchani aleichem amru li ma shemo. They're going to say, what's his name? Ma omar alehem. So what do I tell them? Right? Vayomer Elohim el Moshe ehyeh asher ehyeh. I'll be what I will be. Which is, of course, what his name is going to be in Yud Kei Vav Kei, because Yud Kei Vav Kei means to be. I'll be what I'll be. And Yud Kei Vav Kei is a combination of the letters was, is, and will be. And Yihya, right? Of course, that means that's referring to God as being eternal, right? Ve'yomer od Elohim el Moshe kotomar el bnei Yisrael Adonai Elohei avotechem Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Yaakov shelachani alechem zeh shemi l'olam zeh zechi l'dor v'dor. Right, that's my name eternally, right? They will end forever. So go get the people, and he's going to have the conversation. Of course, Moshe is going to refuse all the way down the line, and he's going to refuse multiple times till finally God gets angry, and he agrees to letting him get his brother to represent. And he never wanted the religious establishment to be involved. Now we're at the end of 3 weeks ago, class. He never wanted the religious establishment to be involved in this process. Moshe. God never wanted the religious. He never wanted Aharon. He only gives in to Aharon as a, all right, he's angry. He doesn't want it. I want you to do it. I only want you to do it. And then he finally agrees. But God agrees under duress, and God lets him have the religious establishment involved with the process. Of course, that says a lot about the religious establishment, because God does not want it to be the religious establishment to be involved in this process of transmitting God's will to the people and what he wants. He wants only the prophet to be involved.
Is that after the fact?
No,
Or is it, I mean, it's because in hindsight, we look back at how the religious establishment.
No, it's the way it's setting up from the very beginning. What you should rather say than asking is that if the religious establishment has problems way before this. He doesn't want the religious establishment involved. Remember that when Moshe is going to talk in Devarim about Aharon, he's going to say, if not for the God, in fact, God wanted to eliminate him, and he intervenes on Aharon's behalf, right? That's how it's depicted in chapter 9 of Devarim. It's not right? He wanted Lahashmid, right? And he intercedes and he saves him. So the problems that exist with the religious establishment, there's an implication that I don't want them involved, right? But it's accepted because Moshe refuses. Therefore, it looks like God only wants the prophetic Moshe and his prophetic representation to be the one that works. Everybody with me so far?
And you could also say that whenever Aharon is alone without Moshe, it's always betting him.
Problematic. Can't do the
everything goes south. You can't do the B'kei Kohanim, the Egel, the sons and always a negative story.
Right after he's right, or Mizbah Hadamah, right after the 10 Commandments, Mizbah Hadamah, I don't want a Mizbah made everything, which is going to turn into the Mishkan, which is going to be, we show it's a developmental process, always a concession. The Mishkan is going to be the how you fix the problems with the 10. It's going to be the opposite of the way Shlomo makes his temple, right?
So the people not at the level to receive the Nevuah, that's why we have the Mishkan religious establishment getting involved.
I'm sorry?
I don't get involved because the people are not going to be able to take just the Moshe straight.
No, because Moshe refused.
But also because the people are going to have a problem with it also. Right.
Well, you're saying that. It's beyond the scope of this, other than to bring up the problem. It'll take too much time to answer your question.
Assuming when he says Aharon, it's really Aharon.
Right. I mean, you can't miss that fact.
That's a positive thing, you know?
Moshe's name, Aharon's name in Aharon, you can't miss the fact that the Aharon and Aharon, right? And when David, take a look at the end of Shemuel, everybody. Go to the end of Shemuel. The very, very end of Shemuel. And take a look at Shemuel 2, right when he's buying the property. Read it, and you'll catch it. The owner David, he has to pick your poison, because God was angry. Ve'yabor Gad el David b'yom hahu, chapter 24, verse 18. Ve'yom elo aleh hakim l'nai mizbeach begorden eravna haibusi. Right now, eravna haibusi, he spells his name. No one catches this, and I don't know why. His name is spelled Aleph Resh Vav Nun He. Vayal David Gad Kashet Sivan Mai Veshkef Aravna. Again, and I think it says I'm almost positive it says his name 8 times. And you can't miss that the word Aravna is nothing more than an anagram, just like Haron and Haron. Well, there's the word. It's right there. It's with the vav in it. Every letter, right? You have Ron, except that there's a vav which you could have or not have in a word, right? It's just a vowel. Aharon's name is with the cholem and the other, with and without. So he buys from. I'm making a joke now. He buys from Aharon, the place where the Aron will be, and you are meant to pick up on this. You, the reader, it's not picked up, of course, but you're meant to pick up on that's where it is, and that's, of course, the book closes on the hope that the Aron, the hope that it will be a future, right? It's gonna. Shemuel is now gonna turn to kings, and you're not gonna be too happy with the way that picture looks after the 3rd chapter on with Shlomo. But the fact of the matter is, it was sort of like a setup for the future, right? It's setting up that there's a hope for the nation to build from there. All of that said, this track about God's name, about what it means, and about Ani Hashem, to get a better understanding of it, this is what I want to do in this class, because this is all in volume 2, and it's in a chapter in the book that takes up 100 pages, something like chapter 8 took up, right? 100. Volume 2 is going to be about 500 pages, maybe more, maybe 550, maybe 6, I don't know. But 100 pages of it is going to be about, in this chapter, related to this subject. The reason is as follows. The very center of Tehillim, we show that the very center of Tehillim, 75th and 76th Mizmorim, talks about everything that we just now spoke about in detail, but it talks about it in such a way as not to repeat. Tehillim is a commentary. So you're getting in Tehillim a commentary on what takes place in Shemot, building up to the Ani Hashem statement. But a prophetic commentary, and you get a 3-dimensional view of it. So I'd like to, before we end today's class, open up on how that track works. And to do that, you have to look at Tehillim's 3rd book, which is about Asaph, which is about the religion. One of the big hadushim of the commentary is that Asaph is another word for the religious establishment, just like Korah is another word for the political establishment, which is in book 2, right? And book 2 shows how there's 12 Korah Mizmorim and 12 Asaph Mizmorim, and how they always are connected to each other. So it forms an ABBA structure, and one is talking about the political establishment, the opening of book 2. The other one is the opening of book 3, is talking about the religious. The middle of the Torah is Vayikra, about the religious establishment. The middle of Tehillim is Asaph, right at the middle. And 75 and 76 are at the focal point of 150 Mizmorim, right? So 75 is the counterpart, if you'll take a look a minute at 75. It is the counterpart to Ani Hashem. How is the counterpart is very, 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 I can't say it enough, very interesting, inspiring, and it gives you the ability, you transcend when you understand it. Like when you see a great sunrise, right? You can actually, this is meant to have that effect, and it does. But we won't be able to do that tonight. Huh? The Holalim in the, that's before, right? That's right. The Holalim, whenever you say Holalim, you're talking about the people who are, he makes, Yirmiyah makes a phrase, a term that's supposed to refer to the religious priests, the leaders, because they're supposed to be saying Hallel, and they're Holels, they're boasters, they're, instead of praising God, they praise themselves, right? So he calls them Holalim, which is an amazing, criticism of what they are. And we show in the book how no one knows who the Holalim are, but when we finish showing you, you're done. You know it's referring to them. That said, I'd like to present to you how Shemot is perfectly tracked to Ani Hashem in Tehillim in the third book, Mizmorim 73, 74, and 75, and 76. When I say perfectly tracked, I mean perfectly tracked. Again, nobody knows this, but once you see it, it's there. It's there for you to see. But not only do you see it and you get a prophetic insight into this discussion that we've had for the last hour and change, getting a picture of it. So everything we talked about tonight, you've got to keep in mind when we talk next week. We can't repeat anymore. Wherever we are, we're going to go straight into where we are right now, straight. 73, without reading all of 73 now, I'm going to just give you a quickie on it. He opens up by saying, I almost tripped. You know why? I was jealous of the Holalim. I saw these Rishaim at peace and they don't suffer in death, and they're very healthy. They don't suffer with the rest of the people. They don't have get negaim like the rest of the people, and therefore, they're surrounded in ga'ava. Yaatov shit hamas lamo. It encompasses their entire being, right? We're not going to all there is, and then it says yasam no more. Their eyes pop out from fat. We show how every single word in 73, every single word is a priestly word. Halev, their eyes pop out from the halev. They're eating the halev. We've talked about that in the past. You may remember that we discussed this. So 73 talks about the priests. And it talks about the corruption that goes on, but he never says he's talking about the priests. He always says it beneath the surface. He never deals with it openly. He says, if I would have said I'm talking about the priests at the center words, I would have been a traitor to your people. The people couldn't cope with it. The people, if he come to them and tell them, all the rabbis are a bunch of lowlifes. The people go out of their minds. What are you talking about? He's a holy man. He's a good guy. No, the whole thing is all corrupt. It's all a zero, right? You can't. The people would not only they wouldn't accept it, they'd say, what's wrong? You just can't handle the truth, right? So he says it clearly. He says it beneath the surface in an amazing way, right? The center words of this Mizmor are the very focal point. He says, and then if I would have said if I would have said that Asaph is Kohen, when I'm talking about Asaph, I use the term Asaph. If you would have known Asaph equal Kohen, I would have been, So I have to speak about it this way. That's 73. Maybe we'll look at 73 closer. It's very interesting to see it and to see the words, and it's everything is priestly in 73, which I'm very happy to tell you when I finish the commentary, No one ever caught it. All those scholars with all their analysis of the priestly, what's P and this, everything is, what about this? And they never catch it. But once you see it, every word is priestly. Everything, all over the place. It's amazing. 74. 74 comes along, and you immediately turn to the destruction of the temple. Yeah. The scholars will ask, why do you turn to the destruction of the temple when the destruction of the city comes first, but the destruction of the city of Jerusalem is not talked about till the 79th was brought, right before the 80th, of course. So the answer is, what's the answer? You could say.
You just said it's talking about the priestly people.
Right. He's opening up, it's Asaph, and he's talking about the priests. And where did they end up? He talks about how these guys are gonna all wake up in destruction. Right? These people, these Baalei Gavad, these people, these corrupt Holelim, and he talks about how they're gonna get completely obliterated. And then the next words are the temple, and the saddest, one of the saddest of all the Mizmorim and Tehillim, because he describes the temple being ripped to shreds and turned into sawdust with axes and
Corrupt religious leaders.
I'm sorry?
Being ripped up by the corrupt religious
No,
leaders.
no. By Bill. By Bill. The enemy is going to come in and they're going to talk about that. Now, this is what we will have to learn inside, and we'll do this next week. 73 we can skip. 74 we have to read inside and see how 74, that's what we'll do next week, how 74 tracks what goes on in Shemot, how it's literally tracking the movement of the opening up of Shemot and the plagues and the things that go on, and talks about it in depth, even though you don't see any of it on the surface. When you look closely, it's all about that. Of course, read that on Shabbat 79 and 74 too. And then we'll see how it leads into the center of all of Tehillim. The reason I'm not going to do that today is because it's 9 o'clock, and if we start, it needs an hour and a half. So we'll continue with this next week. Just want to say, before we end the class, so much fun to see everybody. It's just great. What can I tell you? It's so I Gentlemen, I hope you'll be back next week, everybody, because this is a very important series. I can't underline enough how important this series of classes are. Everything we spoke about tonight will have to be fresh in your mind. Think about it. Don't come in cold. And when we learn 74 next week and see how it impacts this idea of Ani Hashem, I think you'll be very, I'm telling you, you'll be amazed at it. So keep it in mind.
Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
pleasure. Have a
Thank
good
you.
Hazak Baruch.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Good night, Grandpa.
it's so funny that I talked about you, and sure enough, I look up, oh, there he is. It's great.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks. Hazak Baruch.